All right, 8 p.m. Sunday night. Welcome to the wonderful world of Generation X, our weekly dose of all things 70s, 80s, and 90s. In the former time slot of the wonderful world of DISNEY, don't want to get a copyright strike there. We took it, we own it. That 8 o'clock Sunday night slot, Eastern time, we go live and talk about what it was like growing up in the 70s, the 80s, and even into the 90s. Every week, YouTube and Facebook, simulcast on both. Let's see what we got coming in. Make sure to say hi and where you're coming in from. Oh, Record Hound, evening. What's going on? JTR, serial killer, howdy. Quick on the draw. Frankie's in the house. Yvonne, Top Gun. Kristen, how are you? Doreen, good to see you in early. Carlos, it's been a while. Christopher Clark, hello. Lawrence Moran, Top Gun coming in from Wisconsin. Denver currently for Harry Potter. Hey, what's going on, Lawrence? Happy Sunday from New Jersey. Well, happy Sunday from the Charlotte area, where we had a good day today. It was about almost 60 degrees, but we are in for it. It's going to drop precipitously. And by Wednesday, I think we're back into the teens and 20s overnight. But Mick McGuire from Syracuse, I'm sure you have it a lot worse than we do. Best SNL skit. Funny you mentioned it, Sarah, given there isn't Saturday Night Live special going on tonight that I am taping. Favorite Saturday Night Live skit? I like whichever ones when they would break. Big fan of the 80s stuff with the We'll Pump You Up, which went into the 90s, Church Chat, the Not Ready for Primetime Players when we were little was a big deal for me. I remember trying to stay up after 11:30 when my parents had gone to bed to see if I could watch it. I remember the Mr. Bill sketch. That kind of freaked me out as a little kid. Kevin says, watching Cobra Kai, and they had Take My Breath Away for a wedding scene, Silent Lucidity for a birth scene. I haven't seen the last 5 episodes. Going to start watching those this week. Hey, Topher Scott coming in from Austin, Texas, originally from Southern Illinois. Tammy Elaine, how are you? Sarah, hello. Angel and David, hey to both. What's going on, Wirehead? What's going on, Blister Bill? A lot of regulars. Stacy Combs is in the house. Cindy Buckner, hello. Laura, hello. Joseph, hello. Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood, that was a good one. Yeah, that SNL special is at 10 o'clock tonight Eastern time. Record House is not far from Niagara Falls, buried in snow. Yeah, this has been a winter. Even here in the Carolinas, we've had it cold. Anything with John Belushi? Thank you, Sherman Taylor. I appreciate that. Saw the first one not knowing what it was from Oregon. The Mr. Bill thing that I was talking about, though, I remember that, like, as a kid, that bothered me because he just got destroyed every episode. Every skit, they would just crush him. The Coneheads, I remember that. Hey, David Cox, good to see you. Joan, how are you? Luna, how are you? Good to see you. I like the ones when they break. I was a huge fan of the Carol Burnett show, watching it with my mom. And anytime, let's see, Harvey Korman or Tim Conway would get them to break character. I loved anytime the SNL cast would just break each other and they'd kind of fall through that fourth wall. And all of a sudden, instead of us watching television, we were kind of just sitting in a room watching our friends crack up. I really always liked that as a kid, and I like it now. Life on Two Wheels in Boston is reminding us of Carol Burnett's ear tug to her mother, if I'm remembering correctly. Just a little hello. I always love that. Angel and David says it is snowing where they are today, but yesterday it was like 70. What's going on, Andrew Bradford? Our resident Goonie is in the house. Good to see you. The Baldwin SNL skit with the balls was my favorite. His sweaty balls, if I remember correctly. Pat was funny. Tim Conway broke everyone all the time. That was his resident job. And of course, if you haven't seen it already, Google search Tim Conway and the elephant skit from Mama's Family skit. That was hilarious. Top Gun says Charles in Charge was my fetish. Kristen coming in with, could it be Satan? Church lady chat. We are on a level 2 snow advisory. Sheesh. Well, I was in Orlando a couple weeks ago, God, I can't believe it's gone by that quickly. Last week, I guess it was, right? Was it last week? I guess it was last week. 2 weeks ago. I'm so confused. 2 weeks ago, I guess. At any rate, so it was like 80 degrees there, and that was really nice. I need summer to get here, or I need to go away again. Deborah Mott saying, not sure if she has to work tomorrow due to power outage. Christine, how are you? Coming in all the way from Denton, Texas. More cowbell. Always more cowbell. It was just last week. All right. Yeah. I've been so busy. It's crazy. Weekend update with Dan Aykroyd and Jane Curtin, if I remember correctly. That would be Jane, you ignorant slut. There it is, coming in with JTR. Just beat you to it, buddy. Um, Gonna break. So we just celebrated the 40th anniversary of Breakfast Club, so I figured we could talk about that a little bit today. I also met the cast of Breakfast Club last week over in Orlando when I was down there for MegaCon. And it blew my mind as I was talking to so many different people, specifically about Breakfast Club, because number one, I knew they were going to have a panel there, and number two, because it turned 40 years old, which I know a lot of us are like, how is that even possible? How is it possible that Breakfast Club could have been 40 years old? And as I try to remember it, I've seen the movie dozens of times. I don't remember if the first time I saw it was in the theater or if I saw it on HBO. But I've got almost every memorable line that is to be memorized. I've gone through my life now, looking back 55 years. At one point in my life, I was Brian. At another point, more Andrew. I'm pretty sure I've got more than a few Bender incidents in my life. Basket case, I got covered. The only one of the group that maybe I didn't hit hard enough in my life so far is the princess. So maybe now in this chapter of my life, I need to bring out some more of the princess in me. But if I'm being honest, there's probably some of that too. Hey, Den, what's going on? There's probably that little bit of us that little bit of conceit that we carry, that could even be the princess, and that's what that John Hughes movies did for me. Um, Ajax reminding us of 1-800. We have that 1995 ready. That era was amazing. Hey, Katie Jane, in that it reminded us that we were all a little bit of everybody, and that yeah, there were these different cliques that we grew up navigating. But damn, that movie spoke to me a lot. Michelle says Breakfast Club's not 40 years old because Gen X hasn't aged. The lipstick trick, I remember that, Roseanne. Um, True enough, Stacy says, reminds me that I've got the princess covered because I have two daughters. Fan theory on Breakfast Club is the whole movie was a daydream for Ali Sheedy's character, and she was the only one in detention. I like those little fan theories. I could get on board with that. Disney's got a bunch of them where they talk about how the sunken ship in Little Mermaid was actually the parents' ship from Frozen that sunk. And that sunk and became the sunken ship that Little Mermaid found. And that when the parent ship from Frozen sank, they actually survived on a lifeboat, went to a deserted island, and had Tarzan as a child. I think those things are kind of cool. If you haven't heard those already, there's a lot of good ones. Andrew Bradford saying Jaws turning 50 in June. I got to do some content around that. Kevin Pernetta, hello. Cindy Buckner says I could actually do the lipstick trick. Well, you know what? If these moobs of mine keep growing as I age, I soon will be able to as well. Sherry Kingston from Orlando, just there. Next, as far as travel, I think I might try to do, somebody mentioned GalaxyCon in Raleigh. That might be one I want to hit, if for no other reason than William Shatner's going to be there, and I'd love to be able to see that I saw him at one point before he passes on. He is in his 90s now. And then there's one called Dragon Con in Atlanta that's supposed to be pretty big, but that one is not for a while yet, so I'm not sure. Katie Jane says, could you imagine if they got together and did a sequel about their kids ending up in detention together? Number one, Katie and I go way back. Katie knew me in the 90s, back when I was a 20-something living in Buffalo and presumably going to college, more often than not going. Number two, thank you, Lana. Number two, yeah, I think I'm all about the sequels. I'm really, really excited that they are starting to write a sequel to St. Elmo's Fire. I like sequels. I like revisiting with characters I loved growing up and seeing how they've done. I can't stand reboots. I hate that they rebooted certain movies like Patrick Swayze Bouncer movie. I'm drawing a blank. Somebody help me out. Don't reboot it. Make a new story up. But I'm okay with them revisiting it. Dragon Con, I've heard, is awesome. I'd like to read more. Right now, I'm not showing much about it. They're not showing any of the people that are going to go yet, but it's early. Hey, Deb, how are you? Roadhouse. Thank you, Rick Smith. Yeah, I did not care at all for the fact that they rebooted Roadhouse. Thank you, Cindy. They changed the character, they changed the premise. Just don't redo them. Re-release them into theaters as they were if you want. But if movies are too problematic to remake as they were, then don't bother. Leave them alone and make up a new story. Have I ever met Weird Al? Asks me Dan. No, I haven't. Nope, I haven't. Carrie was garbage. I agree. Cobra Kai again. Cobra Kai is a sequel. It's revisiting our original characters. It's getting to see them again. I love that part. Harry Potter says I met William and experienced him behind the scenes. Shatner is somewhat of a jerk. I've kind of heard that too. There is that old saying, "Don't meet your heroes; you'll always be disappointed." Not that I'm anybody's hero, but I hope if any of you meet me in person, I hold up. I try to be who I am in real life on camera. That way, when you meet me, it's not disappointing. I'm the same jerk you saw on camera. But yeah, even some of the people that I met on this most recent trip were a bit of a disappointment. Um, they're not who we think we are. They are. Courtney, I am from both Rochester and Buffalo. I was born in Rochester. I grew up in Wolcott, New York, to the east of Rochester. I went to college at UB and lived in Buffalo for about 12 years thereafter before I'm getting married and moving to Rochester again. And now I live in Charlotte. I've seen on Facebook they want to remake Little House on the Prairie. So, Carlos, about that, they actually aren't remaking it. They are making new stories. It's a new revision of the books. So, it has nothing really to do with the series we grew up with. It has to do with the books. And from people that have read the books, I can tell you the series didn't actually do, for as good as it was about a lot of things, the series didn't do a great job of following the books. So, this will be an interpretation of the stories, and we have to wait and see how it goes. But it's going to be on Netflix, I guess. We are lucky enough to see all the Star Wars movies on the big screen. Absolutely agree with that. That was very lucky. Oh, have I got stories, says Katie Jane. Katie, I'm still trying to find pictures from back then. I've got, we talk about Gen X not having a lot of receipts, not having a lot of photo evidence, video evidence of the era we grew up in. But I'm kind of lucky. My parents, for whatever reason, took a lot of pictures of us as kids. So I've got a decent amount of pictures, family pictures, as kids. I've got a fairly decent amount of pictures from school that have survived, as far as those class pictures and such. What I don't have is pictures through college. I have very, very few pictures of me in my 20s. And the funny thing is, when you guys remember going out in our 20s, there was always one person in our friend group. And it was more usually a girl that was in our friend group that would always bring the camera when she came out. And we hated it. We hated it when she would tell us to get together for a picture. She was annoying as hell when she stopped us from doing the shots because she wanted a picture of us holding the shot glasses. It was really annoying. But now I'd like to track her down and see what she's got. If you've got any of those pictures, I would go dig through. I would love to see those, Kate. See what you can find. Did I ever get Jared P. and his wife's autographs? I didn't. Oh, that's Tina Borelli. I was going to say I saw Padalecki was at Jared Padalecki was at MegaCon. I just didn't get a chance to see him this time around. Hey, Quark. My mom has so much 110 film undeveloped near Dewey Avenue in Rochester. Okay, I know the area really well. I was and still am that camera girl. We appreciate you after the fact. It's in the moment that we all hate it. And we all, love sort of the pictures that celebrate the times in our lives once we have them years later. I love looking at old pictures. I just hated taking them then. Happy birthday, Harry Potter. Happy birthday, Cindy. Hey, Tina Borelli. Good to see you. Didn't see you sneak in. a lot of us Western New Yorkers here in the Carolinas, I'll tell you that. You can't drive 10 feet without seeing a Bills bumper sticker. Kodak, the times of your life. Richard, see, that's funny. And Courtney will tell you that us Rochester kids, every grade schooler that grew up in Western New York took a tour of the Kodak factory as a school field trip. Is that why we hate having our picture taken now? I don't know why we hate having. I don't hate having my picture taken, obviously. I still have people in my life that do. And I think at this point in our lives, we should all realize that whatever we look like today, in 10 years, in 5 years, in 15 years, in any amount of time, we're going to wish we still looked like this. You're always going to look back and say, wow, I looked good then. So enjoy it. Who cares anyway? I live in Florida now and miss Kodak and Wegmans. We're getting a Wegmans here in North Carolina. Should open up in about a year or so, I think. Side hustles, wedding photography. I did that for a minute, Irish. I tried. I took some photography classes in college. I like doing family photography. I love taking pictures of kids. Weddings were too stressful. If you missed a moment, there was no getting it back. Go Bills. The watch is awesome. I did see your post about it. Just saying it's great. Yeah, this was a birthday present. It's actually a Swatch watch. And a buddy of mine, Jimmy, found it for me. I'd actually seen it before. It was always out of stock when I looked at it. But it's an actual Swatch, and it just happens to have an X on it. So perfect gift for the 80s for me. I see Stacy saying you were right. I don't know what you were right about, but okay. Hello from the North Jersey Shore. Hey, Gayla, how are you? Hey, Charlene from Florida. Wegmans in Virginia have tons of Bills gear. Yeah, so I still have friends from back in Rochester that my one friend actually has friends in Rochester, and she always gets me those Go Bills Fisher Price little people, and they're from Wegmans. My aunt is the camera in the face. I'm grateful from the photos of my mom after she passed. Hey, Crystal, how are you? Hey, Michael. Hey, Henry, coming in from North Dakota. Yeah, I had a Swatch. The video I did with my kiddo was so cute. Thank you, Lana. For those that don't know, I posted on Facebook, not on YouTube, just over on Facebook. A really short 6 seconds. It kind of how I started doing this. Back in 2020, 2021, I guess, more to the point, home from work based on COVID, and my then 10-year-old wanted to make some silly TikTok videos. So now, 3 years later, they're starting to come up on my memory wall, and I'm just sharing them. It's just us being stupid, doing some silly little TikTok dance, but I love every second of it. I love that she'll have these videos to look back at with me being silly with her. Silly's a good thing to be. Exactly. It's with Cleo, and she's so little in it if you go check it out. What's going on, Jerry Phillips, my dude? How are you? Linda asking me, where have I been? I'm here every week for the most part, Sundays, and I've been posting. What's going on, Paul from West Virginia? Agree with you on winter. Tina, I hear it's getting bad again. My brother still lives in Buffalo. I still have a brother in Rochester. Not seen you for a while. What have you been up to? I think the algorithm decides when to show me and when not to. You can always go directly to my page. I promise you I've been here. Tammy says my mom did a great job in the Hobby Lobby video. Dude, that was the best. My mom's leaving tomorrow. She was visiting me from Florida, and she is at a certain age. But let's be honest, our parents have always been at the age where when they want something, they want it. When they want us to do something, we do it. No questions really asked. And I don't know about the rest of you, but even as I transitioned into an adult, I always remain my parents' kid. I'm an adult. I have children of my own, but I am still my parents' child. Lost my dad a few years back. I miss him every day. Still really blessed to have my mother. Yeah, Cleo's 13 now. And I relish every minute, every day that I have with her. But we just did a quick video where I threw her on camera, and she loved it. And she asked me every day, now, how many views have we gotten? How many views have we gotten? How many views have we gotten? And the video's doing well. I think over the platforms combined, she's climbed over a couple 100,000 views. How old are my kids, Courtney? I have a 21-year-old and a 13-year-old, both daughters. Let's talk about super elastic bubble plastic. Yikes. Yeah, pretty sure it was toxic. Pretty sure it was petroleum based that we put up into our mouths and blew into with a straw. Agreed, Tina Grinder. So much of what we had access to was toxic, starting with the air. Irish Lover says, my dad was a Navy Marine Corps photographer. Very proud of his photography skills. Taught me how to check the lighting for exposure and contrast. That's very cool. Yeah, highly flammable, JTR. But again, I think it's because the super elastic plastic was petroleum based. Jeremy Fleshman asking for prayers. Kentucky getting fed by Mother Nature at the moment. Getting, oh, F apostrophe ED. You have my prayers for sure, Jeremy. A lot of high winds, a lot of weather. But you absolutely sending out all the positive vibes and prayers I can muster. God bless. Derek from Canada. Yeah, basically silly putty with petroleum solvent in it. Wirehead nailed it. That's what it was like. Yeah, Lana says, regardless of how old you are, you're always your parents' kiddo. I have an expression I've shared many, many times. I honestly don't believe you're a fully grown, fully vested adult until you live in a world where no one can call you their child. Even though I'm 55, my mom looks at me as her child. I'm still her little kid. And it's really nice for my daughter, especially the younger one, to see that relationship because she's at an age where she worries over the fact that someday she won't be my little girl anymore. And it's just good for her to see that no matter how old I'm getting, as long as my mom is in this world, I'm her little boy. And I always will be. She'll always be my mama. She'll always be my mommy. She'll always be that person that I look to for support. And even when I get to the point where I'm privileged to be responsible for her care, she'll still always be my mom. Doreen says that means I'm an adult now and it sucks. And it does. It does suck. It absolutely unequivocally sucks. The only solace some of you, some of us can take in that is knowing that now we've become the parent that's going to keep somebody else a child for as long as we can, as long as we're on this earth. There's that pivot, there's that switch, there's that flip that a lot of Gen Xers are in right now. Andrew says, we Goonies never say die, will always be forever young. We will and we won't, right? Well, I always say we're X years old. We are this weird amalgam of every age we've ever been. But adulting sucks. But the good part of it is that we allow our children to be the children and we take over. It's a weird flip. And like I said, we are in it right now. A lot of Gen Xers. In that video, I mentioned that my mom could kick my ass to this day. And some people took it wrong. I think some people didn't get the joke. They're like, you should be really happy that you still have your mother, because I don't. And they misunderstood, unfortunately. I'm absolutely blessed. Tina, I was born in Highland Hospital in Rochester. My parents moved out when I was about 5. We moved to Wolcott, New York, just to the east. Then I lived in Buffalo for about 12 years while in college and beyond. And then back to Chilai for a few years after getting married before coming to Charlotte. Thank you, Sherry. I appreciate that. Flying flip-flops. I'm never through flip-flops. They were always just proper slippers. Or any shoe. Maybe it was any shoe. Whatever she would get her hands on became a weapon. Mother's eyes, we are a child to them always. Agreed. Hey, Steve Bondi, what's going on? Hey, Jody Stapleton. Hello. Dan Rouser just had a birthday. February 8th. Happy birthday. My brother-in-law just lost his mom on Thursday. He's having a hard time dealing with it. Do you guys remember being a little kid and just, I remember laying in bed, lights off, just sitting there and coming to terms with my mortality as a child. And it always started with the thought that someday our parents were going to die. And, I'll make jokes, I'll make content talking about how Gen X really was never afraid of anything. I think we were afraid of a lot. I think we grew up with a lot of fear because we didn't have anyone guide us through there were no sit-down discussions for a lot of us about things like death. We got to meet it and deal with it on our own terms late at night when we were alone. And I think what makes us strong, like people will joke or even come at me and say, what makes you guys think you're so tough? It's not that we grew up without fear. It's that we grew up with a lot of fear. I remember being up late, afraid that my parents were going to die, afraid that I was going to die, trying to imagine what that meant. I remember being a kid in the fall when the hours started to change and it got dark earlier, and realizing that it was going to get dark long before my parents walked in the front door. And I was afraid. I remember the doorbell ringing, not knowing or knocking, not knowing who was there, and being told by my parents to not answer, to not say anything, just go away from the front door and wait for them to leave, and being afraid. But the amazing thing is what made me tough, what made us tough is we had that fear, we conquered it on our own, we figured it out, and we grew up with it on our at our side. Fear for me was a constant companion. I was scared every day. Kimberly Keller says, I've always known death. I accept it and never scared. Life is scary, not death. No matter which side of it it's on. But again, for me, it can even go down to movies we watched. We watched Jaws and Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and Amityville Horror and Sight. All those movies long before we should have. Truly the stuff of nightmares. We were up long after our parents had fallen asleep, or at least I can speak for myself. Hours after my parents were asleep, I was reading Salem's Lot, Christine, Cujo, The Shining, The Stand, reading books no business reading at the age we were reading it. And yet we did. Exorcist, says Frank, scared the shit out of me. That's just, hey, Rhoda, good to see you. I think that's some Faces of Death when I was 9, says Jose. That's the stuff, though. That's the stuff that I don't think I see talked about enough. I have to make a video on it if I could think of exactly how to word it in 90 seconds or less. But we're tough not because we weren't afraid of anything. We're tough because we were alone and afraid of everything. And still got our chores done, and still got our homework done, and still cooked a meal for ourselves, still took care of our younger brothers and sisters. That's kind of cool. Living Dead, Evil Dead, Christine, great movies of our era. I was left alone at night on a regular basis, scared as hell. Independent in our single digits, we really were. Jose goes, yeah, homework, okay. It's not different for these kids. Hey, Crisula, how are you? George saw a tourist trap before I did. Yeah, but Chris, here's the difference. If George came up to you and said, I saw the tourist trap, and said, I'm having a hard time going to sleep because I saw it, that would open up a discussion with you as his mom where you would sit and walk him through it. Now, for those that don't know, Crisula is like family to me. She is a family friend, as Greek as I am. So I know for a fact, had she gone up to her mother or her father and said, hey, mom, hey, dad, I saw The Exorcist and I'm scared, they'd be like, go to sleep. It's late. And that would have been the end of it. Tell me I'm wrong. Hi, Teresa Gordon. Love you. My mom was Gen X, and I was always left alone. I was afraid something would pull my blanket off of me in the middle of the night. For me, it was the foot at the edge of the bed. I could not let my foot hang off the edge of the bed. Crisula confirms facts. Courtney goes, as a millennial, I learned a lot. Sue Klein, how are you, sweetheart? Child's Play freaked me out, says Shrapnel. But that's the stuff. That's the good stuff. That's the stuff I don't think we talk about enough, because as we get tough about being raised on hose water and neglect, we forget to tell this generation that's afraid of so much that it's okay to be afraid. Just move past it. Acknowledge the fear. Look at it. Stare it dead in the face. Maybe you won't even be able to conquer it. Maybe you'll still be afraid, but even as you're afraid, do it anyway. Still don't like my foot off the bed. What ruined the foot off the bed for me was Rikki Tikki Tavi. The idea that there could be a cobra slithering around on the floor that, for whatever reason, as long as my foot stayed on the bed, I was safe. If it hung over the edge, I was venom fodder. Children of the Corn agreed. Very scary movie. Amityville Horror got me for sure. It had us all swinging at clowns. It is the reason I am afraid of clowns. And not the movie, the book. The book scared the crap out of me. The other fear we had was of our parents. I mean, everybody talks. I just had this discussion with my mother, and she asked me if, she goes, you respected your father and me. And I said, yeah, Mom, I respected you and Dad, but I was afraid of you long before I ever learned to respect you. And she took umbrage at that. She's like, no, 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 respect, not fear. I'm like, no, 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 fear. It was fear. I remember kids when we'd get in trouble saying things like, well, they can't kill you. And I remember not being so sure. I mean, honestly, I remember being like, well, no, I guess they can't, but they might make me wish they did. There was fear. I was afraid of my parents. I don't think my kids are afraid of me the same way. I'll have to ask Cleo. I know Sultana was never afraid of me that way, but we were afraid of our parents. Am I wrong? It was fear. And yes, for those that are going to say respect, I get that. I really do. We were raised to respect all adults, though, unless they did something to lose the respect. Respect was freely given, right? We were expected to respect everybody. It didn't need to be earned, but it could be lost. Hey, Neil, how are you? Wait till your father gets home. Chills down my spine. More afraid of our parents than the cops? Yeah, there'd be if I ever got arrested, the last thing I'd do would be to call my mom and dad to come get me from prison. At least in prison, I'd be safe. Kay Snow says respect came first. I respectfully disagree because I think respect is a learned thing, right? But fear is to Leanne's point when you get that look. When my mom gave me the look, remember asking if you could do something in front of company? Something that maybe you had an inkling you shouldn't be asking because you probably couldn't do it, and you sure as shit should not have been asking it in front of company. And your mom said, "We'll talk about it later." Later, we'll talk about it later. Like that. I didn't stop talking because I respected my mother. I stopped talking because something behind her eyes made my blood run cold. And there were times, I'll admit it, when I'm a moron and I didn't see the look. So I kept going. Believe me, that reinforced the fear. Tina Bryce, I agree. We were taught to respect our elders. It was not debatable. We could explain maybe why an adult in our life lost our respect. There could be any number of things that could happen, and that did. My parents wanted me to stand up for myself, even to adults when necessary. But sure as hell, you respect first until there's a reason not to. I learned death was painful and permanent. I don't know. My mom probably beat me to death more than a few times, so it wasn't all that permanent. Andrew says I respected my parents, and yet I was still a loudmouth. Well, all right. So Andrew brings up a good point. We talk about respect and respect and respect, and we did. We respected our parents and we feared our parents. But there was another thing, and that other thing was an ability that was incredible. We all had the ability to calculate in our heads at ridiculously fast speeds risk and reward. The fun we could have versus the consequence we would pay if we got caught having that fun. We did calculations about will it be worth it, and we did it all the time. We had respect, we had fear, but we also had this drive to not miss out on the party in the woods, to make sure that we got to the field before the last of that keg was poured. We just did the math in our heads. And much like being able to give change out of a cash register in our heads, we were able to do all these calculations in our heads. And to Terry's point, do the thing and beg for forgiveness later, or even know that we weren't going to be forgiven necessarily. But it was a risk assessment, to JTR's point, that we calculated and said, you know what? Number one, if I get caught, it's still worth it. And number two, I'm going to make sure that if I do end up getting caught, then it was worth it. And we did that with our parents. We did it with our teachers. We did it with principals. These were like calculations that were going in on our heads constantly. And I'll be honest. Oh, I love that. Cameron Fry calculations. I don't think kids are calculating it the same. I honestly don't. Number one, the consequence is not as great. Consequence for a lot of kids, for better or for worse, I'm not judging this. Consequence for a lot of kids today is I'm going to take your phone. Maybe you'll lose the car. Maybe you'll be grounded and won't be able to go. Consequence for me was all that kind of stuff But on top of it was this physical pain. And I don't care what animal you look at across the animal kingdom. We grew up watching Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. Every animal on that show was built with with an instinctive aversion to pain. So our punishment was very often pain. And I think it's different. I don't hit my kids. I have two daughters. I don't think I ever would have hit them anyway. I just can't fathom the idea as a man putting my hands on two young girls. It just doesn't calculate. I'm not judging. I'm just telling you my story. If I had sons, maybe it'd be different. I don't know. Chrysula says the go to your room consequence is a reward for my boys. Exactly. Even if it's not, even if you take away every single bit so that it's not a reward, it's still not painful. For us, it was painful, physically painful. And it stuck. I didn't like getting hit. Stacy says a spanking does not kill him. It doesn't, Stacy. I get that. But again, as a grown-ass man looking at a young girl, there's got to be a better way for me. Now, my wife, if I'm being honest, yeah, she might have tugged hair a few times. She might have done something. My oldest daughter says I spanked her. She seems to have memories that I don't. I'll take her at her word for it. In any case, it couldn't have been often. But that spanking made a difference. I love how universal GenX experiences are despite race, creed, color, or socioeconomic status. Case Snow. Say it again louder for the people in the back. You can add to that geography. I've got followers from New Zealand, from Great Britain, throughout Asia, and they report the same experiences. Some of it's different, obviously, but so much of it's the same. Maddie Gordon, my buddy, how are you? Best friend Matthew Gordon sitting right there, guys. I keep meaning, it's getting tougher because now I want to do a trivia live with you guys, but I got to figure out how to do it now that I always go live on two platforms. But Maddie always helps me with the trivia. Just have to figure out a way to do it, and then we can play. Came home drunk, and the next morning was given a ton of chores that involved a lot of up and down movements. Kim mentions the wooden spoon. Courtney says, I have a New York Italian mafia-like step-grandfather, and he never let nothing slide. My mom raised two brothers and me all by herself. She's one tough woman and has the utmost respect. My utmost respect. I love it. Today, a consequence would be to tell them to stay out. Yeah. I mean, dude, the consequence. So my dad was the softie growing up. For whatever reason, maybe it's because he was exhausted. We owned a diner. My dad left in the morning before we got up. And there were a lot of nights when my pop would come home when we were already in bed. I remember being 7, 8 years old and him sitting at the edge of my bed in the morning before leaving for the diner. And maybe he'd bring us a glass of milk or maybe just give us a kiss on the cheek before leaving. So perhaps it's because we didn't see him a lot at home. Now, we grew up in the diner. So it didn't mean we didn't see my dad a lot. We did. We would go after school to the diner and hang out so we could all be together a lot. But for whatever reason, my mom was the strongest disciplinarian. I remember my dad taking his belt off as a threat maybe once or twice, but either he never carried it out or my memory blacked out because I don't remember him actually hitting us with it. But my mother hit us early and often with anything and everything she could find. And I remember one day remember the Batman TV show, right, with Adam West and Burt Ward? They would go to the bat poles whenever it came time to change into Batman and Robin. And the way they triggered the thing that opened up to the bat poles was there was a bust, just like this head that would click back and there'd be a little switch in the head that would open up the bat poles. My older brother and I wanted to play Batman, and my mom had not much that she treasured. We struggled a lot in the early 70s. We weren't rich by any means. But she, deserved it. She had this Kennedy, John F. Kennedy. She had this infatuation with John F. Kennedy. And she bought like a marble bust of his head. And it stood on our mantle. And it probably didn't cost a lot, but it cost a lot to us. And it was one of very few things that she actually bought for herself. Things were bought for the house. things were bought for us. Kids, clothes, necessities. Very rarely did my mom ever buy something at that point in time for her. This was that. Well, we broke the head and clear off. We went to hit it so that we could play with it like they did on Batman, and we shattered his head into a million pieces. And when my mom came home, we thought we were going to get the beating of a lifetime. And the woman just looked at us defeated. I will never forget it. Eventually, I think the beating came, but initially, she didn't know what to do with us. And we were so afraid before she got home that we got ready for bed thinking that if we could go to sleep, she wouldn't wake us up to hit us. So we were in our Fruit of the Loom, tighty whities, and t-shirts in bed when she got home. And it was like February. And I remember her saying, you know what? Wait until your father gets home. But it wasn't just wait until your father gets home. It's you're going to wait until your father gets home outside. And in our tighty whities, in like October, when it was like 50, 40 degrees out at night, she tossed us out onto the porch. And there's where we were for like a good hour until my dad came home. Friends going by, cars driving by, mortified. And then when we finally got in, that's when the beating began. She needed to compose herself. But think, if tonight while you're in bed, think back. There's so many stupid things we did. And I'm remembering more and more of them as I do more and more content because people remind me of stuff. But we were a special kind of stupid. Playing ball in the house was the least of it. Our house smelled of cigarettes, lemon-scented Pledge, and glue. If there's one scent of my memories of my childhood, that would be it. Those three things together. Because my mom dusted everything with lemon-scented Pledge. Both my mom and dad smoked constantly in the house, and us boys broke everything all the time and would desperately try to glue it back together again so she wouldn't know. Cindy goes, there was no waiting until dad got home. Mom would beat us, and then dad would take his shot. Kristen laughing at a special kind of stupid. Dude, it was. It was a very special kind of stupid. There was just no thinking. In what world did we all decide that Aquanet and the lighter belonged something that and we all did it. We all created our own flamethrowers. Speaking of fire, not to be outdone, Ryan Landis over on YouTube. My friends and I dunked tennis balls in gas. Lit them, and then threw them at each other. Dude, you can't make this stuff up. There should be like 7 of us left. Our generation is small. It should be small to non-existent. I mean, I'm telling you, it's the calculations. It's the fact that we learned to think so quickly that we escaped our own extinction somehow. You say that in past tense? I'm not as stupid as I was. Locked my brother outside in the winter, says Terry. Dared him, he couldn't run across the street in his underwear without someone seeing him. I did that 3 times around my house. My older brother double dog dared me. Colin, $5 super chat donation from YouTube. I've been watching your reactions to people drinking strong stuff and suffering the consequence. They all crack me up. Always a pleasure. Somebody not even just liquor. I just got one like that the guy ate cat food and regretted it. That's my point. Where's the calculation ahead of time to figure out what's going to happen? It's non-existent. I don't get it. Ding dong ditch. Nuns and rulers, the original F around and find out. Dared a friend to run around completely naked, butt naked. We did a lot of stuff naked as kids, didn't we? Like streaking was a thing in the 70s and it continued into the 80s. I remember you could watch a sporting event and at any given moment, there would be somebody naked running across the field. I haven't seen that in a long time. People now have, as much as society has gotten more and more aggressively sexual, being naked has taken a back seat to the way we grew up. Skinny dipping was a very big deal when I was a kid. Lit the toilet paper rolls at school just to watch it burn. Hi, Tammy from Alberta, Canada. Pyromania was one of our albums, true. Streaking stopped in the mid-70s. It did go into the 80s, but it hit its height for sure in the mid to late 70s. We burned the Christmas trees left out on people's curbs for trash. Dude, I remember I grew up in Western New York and there were these cottonwood trees. I don't know if that's their real name or not, but every June they would release what looked like fuzz, like cotton, into the air. And then it would just pile up everywhere. And I got to tell you, if you've never seen it in existence, this stuff is everywhere. It looks like snow in June. But the most amazing thing about this stuff is that it is ridiculously flammable. And we would set that stuff on fire constantly. Co-ed naked swimming in gym class in the 60s. Kevin, I've heard it mentioned. I've seen stories on that. I still have a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that it was true. Yeah, that cottonwood was so we would like line it up like a fuse. No, Sherry, it's a real thing. You can look it up. It blows my mind, but it was a real thing. I hated co-ed. I hated not co-ed. I just hated communal showers in like middle school and stuff. That I don't need to be in a communal shower with 30 other guys. I never liked that very much. Kim Chuck Tripp, how are you from Buffalo, New York? Hope to be back up there this summer for some time. I got to find something fun to do. Cattails would light up too. Yeah, but that cottonwood would light. I'm telling you, it follows. It's like a fuse. It's amazing. I remember we lit a bunch of it and didn't realize that it was connected, and then ended up going underneath our wooden deck, and you could just see flames coming up the deck. Now the good news is it burns out quickly, so thankfully it didn't set the deck or the house on fire, but came close. Debbie and Racha-Cha, how are you? Chris over in SoCal, hello. Shooting bottle rockets at each other. Yep. Not just bottle rockets. What were the other ones? The tube ones. Bottle rockets and can never remember the other one, what it was called. But yeah, fireworks towards each other was definitely a thing. Roman candles. Perfect. Thank you, Joe. We did more of the Roman candles than the bottle rockets because they're easier to aim. Thank you, Michael. Roman candles. You guys got it like that. Sap of cottonwood's super flammable. I remember my earliest memories. My earliest memories are so surrounded by fire. Even something as simple as like a magnifying glass. We found a way to just sit out there in the sun and burnt live bugs. I set ants on fire with a magnifying glass. Burnt holes in leaves. Started small fires with a magnifying glass. My older brother would pour out the lawnmower gas and set it on fire, hoping to set me and my other brother on fire. Nice. Her Jolt is coming back with more caffeine. I heard that too. Our high school, Linda says, had a smoking section. I didn't experience it personally, but before I got to high school, my high school did. Pretty flames, says Boozy. Did I light my farts? Asked Stacy. I missed that one. I missed the fun in that one. But, you know, I'm still here, so the night is young. We'll see how things go. Buddy of mine used to burn the wings off of flies. That's special. Salt on snails. Never did that one. I'm a girl, so I've never farted. I'm going to let that one slide. Fire, 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 fire. Dude, but it was. Fire was amazing. Most of us had fires not stay where they were supposed to. The whole Aquanet flamethrower with a lighter thing. I set our carpet on fire. Thankfully, it was a shag rug, so it just took a little off the top and it was fine. What's going on, Annalisa from Texas? Good to see you. Beer for snails would blow them up. Didn't know that. Boozy Life said we were curious. We were alone. It's the stupid things we did were more a consequence of being alone than being curious. More a consequence of no one being there to say don't do it than us being stupid. I think all kids, even today's generation, would do the same things if they were able to, but they can't. They can't. We know where they are at all times, 24/7. The laws basically demand we either have someone at home with them or they're in daycare. And I'm not saying these are bad things at all. I'm just saying that it was different then and it's different now. Kids are kids. Kids will always be kids. Kids aren't born softer than they used to be. It's we became what we were allowed to be, and these kids are becoming what they're allowed to be. My husband said GI Joe's on fire, dude. The amount of GI Joes I blew up with M80s cherry bombs. Oh my god. Sherry says I took alcohol to school. The day flew by. We would jump any crappy ramp with our bikes. Now, Ryan, that one I can't blame on adults not being around because I know we had adults in the neighborhood that donated the wood, that found us a concrete block to set the ramp on. They actually helped us with that stuff, which I just got to say, they did Darwin's work for sure. Mark, you're scaring me. Stuffing a straw up a frog's rear end and blowing it up, then dropping them on the highway. I don't know what to say to that. Tie a string to a fly as a pet. I was never that dexterous. My hands have not that dexterity necessary. Saw a moron burn the hell out of his leg with lighter fluid and fire. Dude, again, it's all anything we could do. Is it any wonder we drank Everclear? This stuff is flammable as hell. We would mess around with wasps' nests. I remember that. Stand at what we thought was a safe distance and throw like crab apples or anything we could at bees' nests, at wasps' nest, and sometimes it was bad. I do a series of videos called How Old Am I? And it's not really a question, although some people love guessing, and sometimes it's very complimentary, and sometimes I want to reach through the screen and just wring these fuckers' necks because it's not complimentary. But the How Old Am I thing, the one I'm working on next is How Old Am I Games We Used to Play edition. And it's the outside games I want to do. Things like Red Rover I saw someone do. Red Rover was big. Capture the Flag was absolutely one of my favorites. Something as simple as the different variations of hide and seek. To this day, in the summer, if I can get my 13-year-old to get the kids in the neighborhood together, we'll play Manhunt. I will go out and play Murder, Midnight, Kick the Can, hide and seek with them. And I love it. Sorry, Maddie. Did I swear? I don't do it a lot. Freeze tag, regular tag. Somebody ever see the meme out there that said I was today years old when I found out that tag stood for touch and go? I don't know if that's real or not, but whoever thought of it, that's pretty genius. Doorbell ditch, ding dong ditch, ring and run. Jeremy says Red Rover got outlawed. Yeah, that's happened. Flashlight tag was awesome. I loved flashlight tag. We played in the cemetery up by my house when it got dark. I know it's bad, but we changed that. That at some point became just the aptly named Kill the Man with the Ball. King of the Hill. Nicky Nine Doors, I don't know. Red light, green light, I remember. Glow in the dark frisbee at night. Never did that. Sounds fun. Combine hide and seek with dodgeball. So when you'd find them, you'd hit them with a ball. That does sound fun. Kick the can was awesome. Kickball was awesome. As somebody who grew up not really athletic, I was very undersized, very thin, very small, very blind. So I didn't do really, really well with sports. But kickball was something we all could play. Hide and seek, bike riding on my buds. Cleo, vale fanela? Blusa. Pina vale minha blusa. Uh, 57 years or 20,936 days young. Making nunchucks. I've got a pair right here. Single time. That's the other thing that I don't think I've ever talked about. Tetherball is playing alone. As much as us Gen Xers went outside to play with our friends, I don't think there's a one of us that didn't go down the neighborhood ringing doorbells and looking for friends and not finding them. I remember the days when no one was around to play. And before Matt or one of my friends say no, they were just hiding on me. I don't think that was it. There were times when no one was around, and at least me, I don't remember going back home and being like, okay, nobody's going to play. I guess I'll go watch TV. We stayed outside. I remember getting on my bike and like I tell my wife, she's like, I don't want the girls riding. She doesn't want her 13-year-old riding her bike alone. But I'm like some of the best thinking I ever did, some of the best exploring I ever did, was just getting on my bike because no one was around and going. Um, Going 2, 3, 4, 5 miles out and then maybe finding other kids in other neighborhoods. But I remember finding things to do alone. And I remember our parents saying those exact words, we'll go find something to do. Sherry says, I was the skinny Greek, I was the skinny Italian. Building forts. Best way to learn self-direction. I did. I totally remember playing alone. Changed my words there. Um, Riding bikes for miles and miles, just finding that hill and riding down the hill, just hands off the wheel and just going. I can still feel the wind in my face. And just if you had a little transistor radio, maybe that was playing. Sometimes it was just no sounds at all, but the sounds inside your own head. Pandora says, I used to go and find new friends or go in the woods if no one was around. Central California watching. Free range kids. I rode from one end of the Aqueduct Island to the other and back. Bike was our freedom. It really was. Crusoe says, I rode my brown banana seat bike everywhere. Mine was a red Schwinn with a glittery white banana seat. Now that I think about it, it's a little more effeminate than I would have liked, but it's what it was. But yeah, we spent a lot of time alone. Kathy Roberts says, tripping on acid was way cool. Loved high school. Okay. Roller skating around my neighborhood. Biked around the cemetery. Just to go. I didn't even know where the heck I was going. Getting lost. I remember getting so lost at a young age. Like I'm talking 7, 8 years old when fear of not probable things was still prevalent. And by that, I mean, you're never going to get so lost at 8 years old that there are no adults in the world to help you get back home. You will eventually get back home. Are you on? I don't know what that means. Are you on one, matey? I don't know. What's going on, Short and Sassy? I remember getting so lost that in my young 8-year-old mind, I was afraid that I was never going to get home. And like the street lights came on and it was dark and I was still not home. And I still didn't know how to get home. And I remember, I can honestly feel it right now as I'm reliving the memory, the fear and the anxiety being able to come up into your chest. As you're like, am I ever going to get home again? Am I going to get in trouble? Am I going to see my parents? It's like that fear. I'm doing great, Short and Sassy. How are you? I actually, that's a memory literally just sitting here in front of you guys. I just remembered getting so lost at such a young age that I wondered if I was ever going to be home again. And got home after the streetlights came on, got home after dark, walked in the door, expecting my parents to be like crying, sobbing. Where have you been? We were so worried. My mom was sitting there knitting an Afghan. My dad was having a cigarette watching. No one even knew I was missing or had been gone for hours. And I just remember thinking I dodged a bullet, but it was literally the actual representation of the it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? They didn't. And it was. I used to walk in the woods at night listening to my music. Oh, Lauren says we would dam the creeks. We had a place to swim. That sounds like fun. No, kids will never know the freedom we knew, nor should they. It was too much. If you look at the crimes against children, the accidents on children, the rates of it skyrocketed in the 80s. Started coming down in the 90s and even more so in the 2000s. It's great for those of us that survived, but there's a reason they started putting our pictures on milk cartons. Cleo? Oh, I was wondering what you're doing, honey. 10 o'clock, do you know where your kids are? Funny thing is, that always came on right before the evening news, no matter where you lived. So for those of us in Rochester and Buffalo, it's 11 p.m. Do you know where your kids are? So we actually gave our parents an extra hour to get a handle on things. Damn, has it really been an hour? My dad would leave for work at 10 p.m. That means I was gone at 10:05. Used to hitchhike often. I don't remember hitchhiking. I remember accepting rides from strangers on a regular basis. If I was walking to school, If I was out there and it started to rain or if it was snowing, it was not uncommon for people being nice to just pull over and ask if you wanted a ride. It wasn't in any way considered straight. It just wasn't. It was a good thing. It was something you did to be nice. And I'm sure it was also something you did to not be nice. But thankfully, every ride I accepted was from someone who wanted to be nice, but not too nice, if you know what I mean. But I accepted rides from strangers constantly. I made a joke once. My mom asked how I'd gotten home because I'd gotten home fairly quickly after telling her I was going to start walking home. And she goes, you're home fast. And it was raining. And she's like, how'd you get home? And I said, someone gave me a ride. She goes, oh, did you know them? And I said, I remember saying no. And her only response was, well, I hope you remembered to say thank you. Crisula says the movie Adam was scary. Every kid hid in a department store clothing rack. Without a doubt. Our parents lost us so often. Chris, you're a mother, right? And you remember when your kids were young. Maddie, probably not so much you. Maybe Teresa, maybe. Do y'all remember losing one of your kids? Like they're just out of line of sight for even a second? Neither one of our daughters did we lose while shopping for more than literally seconds at a time. They just would fall out of our line of sight for a second. And the fear that like raged up into me and the anxiety, your feet going numb and your knees starting to shake. And then all of a sudden you look and they're there. And it's like everything's all right in the world again. But our parents lost us for hours. Man, he goes, and some candy. I mean, hours. I remember like looking in the mall for my parents forever. Maybe it wasn't hours, whatever. But it was a while. And when I finally either got to the place where they called my mom to get me or I finally found her, there wasn't that fear on their face. And there should have been. Tammy says, I took a lot of strange rides from strangers. Linda says, don't take rides from strangers and their parents. Find your own way home. I just did a video on that. Our parents routinely said, find a ride home. They didn't say find a safe ride home. They didn't say find a ride from a trusted adult. Just a ride home and not me. Hey, you.
Hi.
Come on over. So we're talking about how when we were kids, we took rides from strangers on a regular basis. At 9, 10, maybe a little older, 12, 13. If it was raining and you were walking home and somebody pulled over and said, hey, do you want a ride? What would you do, honestly, if you didn't know them?
Run.
You would run?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I remember getting lost, like, in the stores for, like, an hour. My parents, I just turned around and they weren't there. You got lost once when you were with a friend of ours. It wasn't with us. She was with a friend, a trusted adult friend, and she just got separated from the group. And how did you...
Did?
With Miss Amy. When you guys were outside.
Oh my God, that was so scary. Oh my God.
It was, she was traumatized by it.
It was outside.
It was outside.
It was like at a park, and it was like this huge... Like,
stand up so they can hear you.
It was like this huge like circle of the park, and you had to walk all around the circle. It was like at a soccer place or something. And I remember like walking up and seeing the field, and I was like, I only had a scooter with me, so I was like on my scooter crying.
Well, and what she did is, oh, thank you again, Colin. Glad nothing bad happened when you were hitching. Nothing bad happened to me. But with her story, she actually had a phone on her. No, so I'm sorry, she didn't. She found an adult. She knew who to reach out to. And we told her when you're alone, when you're lost, if that happens, no offense to the guys out there, but we always told our daughter to find an older woman that looked like she might have kids with her and ask her for help. And she found a woman who kept calling my wife. But in this era of we've been trying to reach you about your car's insurance, we don't answer our phones when we don't see the number. But by about the third time this woman was calling my wife, she actually answered the phone. Your daughter has your beautiful eyes. Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate that. My daughter looks like me. Thank you, Dan. It's a much prettier version, I hope. Hitchhike, get us home. Hiding in the clothes racks, falling asleep in the clothes racks. But yeah, our parents took it in stride. Smart to have girls go to an older woman. I hate that that's the world we live in. I'm a guy. I would kill to protect the child, whether it was my own or somebody else's. I would give my life to protect the child, whether it was my own or somebody else's. I hate that we have to give that advice, not going directly to a man. But you play the odds, right? And for the most part, it's good advice. Somebody says they see my hoverboard. Guys, if you love this stuff, I don't get paid to pitch it, but a buddy of mine does it. He has an account over on Instagram called Kryptonite Creations LLC. And I'm telling you, this is the most affordable stuff you can get. And he does an incredible job. Absolutely amazing job putting together memorabilia, and he makes it himself.
Thank you.
He's made that for me. I'm a Star Trek geek. He's made me stuff like the Star Trek communicator, which I think is awesome. Funny how this was the height of technological fantasy fiction, and now our phones do better.
Oh, is that Miss Teresa?
Yes.
She's saying good night.
Oh, good night, Teresa. I'll be back at work this week full time if you guys want to stop out Wednesday or Thursday, and then we can get on our regular schedule. What's that?
It says my stepdad brought hitchhikers home with him.
Okay. I love that hoverboard too. I have a flux capacitor in my car, says Steve. I got a lot of stuff he's made. This is probably my favorite. It's a lightsaber.
Power on. Unstable. Volume low. Pulse. Mute. Volume high.
Okay.
The Dark Lord Order. Pulse.
Come on.
Standard mode.
Oh, no, come on. All kinds of different colors. All kinds of different sound profiles. And I know he had a GenX John 025 code for a while. He might still honor it. But I'm telling you, to get this thing for like $100, and it's metal, it's not plastic, it's just incredible. Kryptonite Creations LLC. He's an amazingly good guy. So I just like pitching it sometimes for fun. So there's that. Yeah. What else we got? We're just about done here. Kevin, you have the original wood paneling in your home. Time for an upgrade, dude. I see your Schwartz is as big as mine. Oh, look, a nightlight. I like it. I'm having a great night so far. Thank you so much. John, I appreciate that. Born in 74. Madcap says, Goonies never say die. I got my Goonies coaster right behind me. Incredible Gen X toys. I'm just starting to collect them now again, David. It's pretty cool. Got my son an official lightsaber. He loves it. 1966 from Kraft. How well do I use it? Meh, some days better than others. Depends on how old the house is. That's true. Who remembers BB gun wars? We had a 3-pump rule on our air rifles. If you went over 3 pumps and got caught doing it, then you had to take a shot at like point blank range as punishment. Topher says, you, sir, are my new best friend. Send me that lightsaber now. Dude, I think on special it's like $75. You can't do better than that. At least I don't think so. Father's cousin's nephew's former roommate. Gotcha. All right, let's see. What time have we got? Do you have a time? It's got to be past 9 o'clock. So, that said, just a couple things for housekeeping. Number one, we did launch a new 3-day Gen X era trivia crack challenge. If you go to my link tree, which is in my bio across any of the platforms, at the end of this live, give me about 5 minutes and there will be a new link updated to direct you to the new game. If you're on Facebook, I already have a live link in the news feed. We do it every week. It's 3 nights, 5 questions a night. The app is free to download if you don't already have it. And it allows us to all play together. And at the end of the day, it's just about bragging rights. It's to see who can win and who knows the most about the 70s, 80s, or 90s. This week, I'm going all 80s because I've been losing because I'm not as good at the 70s and 90s. So I'm going all 80s this week to see if I can beat you guys. So go to my link tree 5 minutes after the show is over, and you guys can catch that link and head over. Who did I like the most at MegaCon, Jody? I will say Anthony Michael Hall was awesome. Kay Snow, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yep, 80s cruise. I've been asked a bunch of different times. I don't like boats. Maybe it's seeing Jaws at 9 years old. I don't know. So not 80s cruise, but maybe something at some point.
What's your newfound fame? Oh, fame.
What does your daughter think about your newfound fame? What do you think of my newfound fame? Do you think of me as famous at all?
No.
No. She's not impressed. That's why round one seemed easier. Yeah, they switched the game to five questions around. People that were in the comments said that it was too long at 10, so it's really quick. So that's that. So that's number one. Number two, thank you guys for coming on, obviously. Thank you for sharing and for helping our pages grow and grow. We beat 100,000 on YouTube. We're at over 730,000 on Facebook. Case Snow, thank you for joining the Xers. The accounts just keep growing and growing and growing. Sheila, I will put out a call tomorrow. I didn't hear from you, and I thought maybe they'd already taken care of you. I will take care of that tomorrow. Throw me a DM over on Facebook if you can. That said, thank you guys who are subscribing. Thank you guys who have joined. Thank you guys who play Trivia Crack. All those things help support the page financially and help us continue to take the time necessary to make content if you enjoy it. It's pretty much all I got. You got anything? Got tomorrow off from school.
Yeah.
Yeah, President's Day weekend continues.
Just like, everyone have a good night.
Everybody have a good night. Thank you so much, Luna. Thank you guys again. Thank you for subbing. Thank you for subbing over on Facebook. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for everything. See you guys soon. Love you. Be good.
You notice you have a beautiful tone.